So I am Ryan Reed. I am the product owner for Lotame's aiTV. I don't want to say platform because apparently we're not selling a platform anymore. What we've been doing over the past year has been trying to bridge all this wonderful data we've been talking about today into the world of TV. And it's very timely that we're having this conference today and we're talking about this because, as some of you may know, the upfronts just ended. And for those of you who aren't in the TV industry, this is where every TV network does a big song and dance, literally. J-Lo danced, Roseanne Barr actually sang. And they get up there and they put all their talent on stage and they try to convince advertisers to spend tens of billions of dollars with them up front to target adults 18 to 49, which in the TV lingo they say that's not a target, it's a family reunion. And they get their late night comedians to stand up in front of everybody and tell jokes to warm the crowd up. And I will quote one of Jimmy Kimmel's jokes that he said at the ABC up front. He said, "Our ratings are down, our prices are up, too bad." And how do they justify that? How are these TV networks justifying the fact that by raw viewer counts they're going down, but their prices for their inventories is going up? Well, every single network group had their head of ad sales come up at each of these upfronts and talk about their audience targeting product. Every network group has one. Actually, Turner's is called Ignite, so don't sue us. And they tell the advertisers you should increase your spend from last year even though ratings are down because now we have data and we have targeting. So the industry is finally caught up to this. So what we've been doing with the aiTV group is to take all these data assets and then work with partners like our good friends and sponsors at Inscape to marry that into the TV world so that you can actually buy on advanced targets in television and you can sell across platform. And leading the discussion, we have three very interesting companies here. Cadent, who's been in advanced TV since before that was a term. Clypd, who's a pioneer of programmatic TV, and then some quaint little startup called NBC, I think is going to come up. So leading the discussion is our head of sales and business development, Tyler Blot. Thank you.
Don't worry, I'll come sit with you guys. Thank you, Ryan, for the introduction and for setting the stage. I had no idea what Ryan was going to say, and he stole a lot of what I was about to tell you guys. But before I have the panelists introduce themselves, I want to do a quick poll here. How many people in the room are familiar with the term advanced TV? A quick show of hands. Okay. How about addressable, data-driven linear, OTT, CTV? So we have a pretty mixed result here. This panel is designed to be very educational. We are very grateful to have these guys at this very busy time of year to participate. We want to shed light on the TV industry. We want to shed some light on what Lotame is doing in this area and how these companies are actually employing data-driven strategies in their day-to-day business. And with that, I'll kick it over to Jen for a little introduction.
Hi everyone, I'm Jen Colwell. I work at NBC Entertainment in an ad sales and market research capacity. My main role is to support our sales and brand integration teams as they sell commercial time, product placement, digital and some social touchpoint data, and access to a number of our advertisers. I also support our distribution licensing team as they have to get a number of our shows cleared across the country so that people can watch in every DMA. So we are using data along with the larger NBC portfolio group, who has a very interesting product called Audience Studio coming out. And they are currently trying to find ways so they can guarantee audiences beyond age and demo. And I'm really proud to be associated with a company that is the first in the space to do this.
Hi everyone, I'm Chris Frazier. I work for Cadent and I'm the Vice President of Business Intelligence. So my role with Cadent is I am focusing on our data and reporting strategy, both internally and externally for the company. So Cadent has many different product lines. We have a licensed software business that's doing DAI ad insertion, building ad maps for when somebody clicks on a video on demand. It will build that ad map for the advertising they'll see based upon what we know about their household. We have a broadcast and linear cable business that is bringing efficiencies to agencies and bringing the impressions at efficient CPM. And we also have our addressable business with one-to-one that's doing addressable linear advertising across many of the different cable platforms.
My name is Jason Burke, VP of Strategy at Clypd. So Clypd is a sales platform for national cable network families and broadcasters. And the focus is in bringing advanced data, so data that goes beyond demographics, into the platform to allow these billion-dollar ad sales organizations to deliver TV plans that reach the demographic target, because frankly, age and gender is here. I'm not sure I'm ready to say it's here to stay, but it makes up 95+% of all TV spend that happens in the United States, but incorporating advanced data to reach coffee drinkers, to reach new car intenders. So our platform is taking data in, forecasting futures, forecasting audiences around where those particular audiences will be watching, which programs, which networks, which day parts, and then generating optimized schedules that deliver against the requisite campaign requirements while maximizing the reach against those coffee drinkers.
Awesome, thanks guys. So in prep for this panel, I was just trying to comb through all the news coming out of the upfronts to kind of come up with an overarching kind of opening question for this particular panel. And I came across a thought piece that Jim Nail, one of the principal analysts over at Forrester, published. And he said that data-driven TV is no longer a future capability. It is something that is very real, and adoption of data-driven practices in TV is rapidly gaining traction. Do you guys agree with that statement? If so, what do you think is driving that momentum?
I definitely absolutely agree. Thanks for the softball. The waves are coming in at high tide, and the question right now is for our agency buyers, for marketing groups at multiple corporations across America, CPG, travel, what have you, is do you want to grab a board and ride, or do you want to get left behind? And we are seeing people sticking their toe in the water right now. They're testing it out. So while most transactions are still going to be done on the agent demo basis, it's going to hold on to the majority for a while. We're going to be able to pair agent demo along with other behavioral or purchasing patterns that we're able to detect, and therefore make it a smarter buy. It might take a little more time before people are willing to accept this as a guarantee, but eventually you might be able to get rid of agent demo altogether.
Well, for Cadent, I mean, audience data is just critical for everything that we do, especially on our addressable platform. We're using that audience data to build what that target audience will be so that we can build a campaign for our clients that's going to be very efficient for them and try to eliminate the waste that they perceive that they're receiving with their linear buys. And we're also expanding using audience data on the linear platform with doing more targeting by looking at network and day part indexes and building that campaign for our clients that's going to be much more efficient in reaching that target audience that they want to hear their message.
So data is obviously very important to Clypd, but it's indirectly important. It's critical for our clients, the media companies, and their customers, the brands. The clients are looking to reach audience wherever they're watching, and we continue to hear that. But now we're starting to see not only reaching an audience on the mobile device and on the PC and on the tablet, but also across non-IP connected viewership of media, linear TV. So we once had a meeting with an executive at one of the broadcasters who said that his competitor is not, his primary competitor now in ad sales is not Lindy Yaccarino at NBC Universal or ABC or Discovery or ESPN. It's Mark Zuckerberg and Larry Page. So the need to bring in data into the world of TV is critical for the media companies as well as for the brands to reach the mass audience that still consumes linear TV.
So you guys just touched on a few different strategies there and applications of this audience data in your day-to-day businesses. What is driving that? Chris, you mentioned indexing media plans and informing where you guys are allocating inventory for your advertisers based on this granular audience data. Is that you guys trying to just be forward-thinking? Is this client-driven? What is kind of the breakout there?
We are trying to be forward-thinking. We start to hear that from our clients, and we're trying to now build that to meet their needs for finding that target and making it so it's not just, as Jim was saying, it's not just the 8-sex demo anymore. They really want to know, are they reaching the intended person for that message, and how can they get that message to them at the right time?
How do you guys see that affect your day-to-day as well? More of the client-driven type of strategy, or is this NBC positioning yourself as that thought leader in the industry and essentially embodying that everything that Linda is up on stage talking about?
I like to think that we're industry leaders, not just because we're leading on 18 to 49-year-olds, but because we do have such a really broad, powerful portfolio. She said something the other day that you can't make the last click unless you make the first impression. And what we're doing is we're trying to become, we're a media company and we don't really care almost to the point, if you saw it on television, you saw it on tablet. We're trying to become device agnostic, where the challenge is the legacy measurement doesn't allow us to capture and earn revenue on mobile streams or anything that was not seen on a television set captured by, are we allowed to say Nielsen? The Nielsen box. So really what we're talking about here is we have to give make goods on units. Let's say if we didn't quite reach, we reached 95% of our promise to an advertiser. And we can't capture those linear views, but what if we doubled it? So we learned during the Olympics that our video views through mobile devices are through the roof. They dramatically extend audience, and our goal is to be able to capitalize on that revenue and to actually deliver advertising content alongside our programs that people want to see. So as a content company, that is our goal for advertisers, is to move their product.
So we're a software platform company. We take no position in the media. Our customer is the owner of that media. We don't buy media. The brand and the agency is buying the media. We are building product to solve the problems that those two parties have. And one of the big problems is in reaching audience with the marketing message. And we've been talking a lot about using data for targeting. That's been a big focus in the products we build. The other thing is improving out the efficacy of the advertising, and more specifically using data. Clypd shouldn't exist if this doesn't work. It doesn't matter if the campaign, Starbucks campaign, reaches coffee drinkers more effectively by using data-driven linear TV, if more people aren't going to buy the coffee. So the next stage, or the next natural transition, is in not only using data to optimize the reach of those coffee drinkers, but it's improving how many people signed up on Starbucks.com, or how many people went in to buy a venti coffee in the morning.
Yeah, that attribution piece is incredibly important to this whole process. I assume from NBC and Cadent's perspective, that's something that you guys are seeing as well. Can you guys give a little perspective on how you guys are trying to tackle the attribution aspect of the media campaigns you guys run?
Well, I mean, we believe that with your addressable buy, attribution is key. You have to have the attribution, because you can do an addressable buy and you can then look at your results and you're going to see a lift in your results, but it's really the attribution piece. It's what's going to allow you to connect your exposures to where the sales are. So, I mean, that's just critical, and it's something that we talk with all the customers. We have a lot of experience working with attribution models, and when they come to us, we recommend the different models, and they decide which is going to be the best way to measure it for their product. So, I mean, attribution is key. It's where the industry is moving to, where everything is going to need to have some sort of measurement of ROI for the media spend.
Yeah, and building off of that, I think that there's a lot of people who have gut impulses about what works for them and what kind of targets they should create. And I think that unless you start the process with data, you're not going to be able to provide attribution to them. So my job in ad sales research is to help our salespeople be as smart as possible about talking about the various attributes of our programs and why they're better than competitors, or understanding what our weaknesses might be so that we can put the spots in the first pod if it works, so the product integration goes in the first 8 minutes of the program and not the last 8 minutes of the program, so that we can have the best reach, we can have the most engaged consumers, and then we can drive any kind of purchase that occurs after that.
Yeah, there's a reason why Google spent a lot of money on odometry, and AOL did the same with Convertro, is proving out that advertising drives sales is critical. Not easy stuff to build, and quite honestly, it doesn't work in TV quite yet. There are a lot of those players that have solved this problem in the digital world, or done a decent job in the digital world making their way into TV. So I would say where we are with ROI measurement and attribution within TV is where we were with using data for targeting 3 years ago. So there's a way to go, but there's a huge opportunity. Depending on who you talk to, the U.S. TV market is $68 to $74 billion. That's a lot of money, and in order for that money to remain within TV, TV does need to prove itself. Digital has done a great job at proving that it works, or some digital works. TV needs to do the same.
So I want to spend a little time and talk about the cross-screen nature that this granular audience data now allows you to measure cross-screen, target cross-screen. Obviously, viewership habits are changing. And you want to be able to reach those target consumers and keep up the brand conversation across the entire advertising ecosystem. How are you guys starting to look at the multiple touch points of a consumer using these different audience segments rather than Nielsen?
So I had a life-changing experience this Monday. Friday, I was a customer of Comcast. And this weekend, I cut the cord. This weekend, I watched the Boston Celtics win against LeBron. And 2 nights ago, or last night, I saw them win again against LeBron. I'm that same person, but was ESPN getting credit for my eyeballs on Wednesday as they did on the weekend? Likely not. The measurement within linear TV and digitally delivered TV, even though it's the same content, even though it's Jason Burke, is not the same. So, that's one of the biggest opportunities is, and I like to call it cross-platform in order to differentiate between digital screens, but in order to enable cross-platform, there need to be data solutions that link audiences across both. Obviously, we all understand that there's massive challenges given the disparity in what digital data looks like in TV, but that's going to be necessary in order to be able to make cross-platform advertising reality.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. That's been one of the challenges we've been thinking a lot about, because with addressable, if you just looked at your exposures, we're doing all this work to figure out what that target audience is, but at the execution point of the campaign, all we can do is target the household. So we don't have a guarantee that that target audience is actually watching at the time where we're exposing the ads. So then on the delivery side, we'll know that we've reached the number of impressions on our addressable side, but then linking that with our linear piece and broadcast, which is using the traditional Nielsen measurements, and to say, well, Nielsen's saying that it's going to be this much of your target audience, but with our addressable platform, we're only being able to really count the households that have viewed it. So it's been a big challenge for us as well, and we're trying to break through how do you do that cross-platform measurement.
Right, so not that NBC is the answer to all, so I can't pretend that we have it all. But one thing that's exciting we did announce this year at Upfront was C-Flight, and that's where we're going to try to connect all of the views across various devices, cross-platform, so that we can have one metric. And if an advertiser says, I want to reach 5 million people via NBC content for my brand, then we'll be able to achieve it, even if it's not through their living room television. We'll be able to put the different pieces together and show them how we were able to execute. So I'm really excited.
Sorry, I was going to say one of the things that's going to be necessary for that, and it props to NBC Universal for just going forward and doing this. Someone needs to step forward and do this. But the challenge is that Starbucks is not only buying NBC Universal, they're not only buying ESPN and A&E, they're buying across them all. So standardization in allowing for measurement across all of those endpoints to keep from having a different report card from NBC Universal than Starbucks gets from ABC, ESPN, and A&E is necessary.
Just to add to that, I mean, I would say another piece that needs. Did I cut you off?
Guys, we wanted to have a fight up here, and we're having one.
Another piece of that I would like to see some uniformity, something as simple as just how do you measure an impression? Every time we talk to a new data partner, we ask them, how long does the viewer need to see something before you'll count it? And I've heard 2 seconds, I've heard a minute. It just seems like it's all across the board. I'd like to see some industry standard of saying, no matter what, everyone's going to count an impression using this standing point of how long a viewer needs to see the commercial.
Right, and we completely agree with that. So one thing that we've done, because we don't have an industry standard, is the video views is if you show a video ad and someone does not watch the entirety of that, we are not counting that as an impression. Therefore, the ad skipping model that some of our competitors allow will not figure into our buy, and we won't charge you for that. So I think that until the industry catches up and decides that we are going to find that, we're just trying to take a step forward and say, we will stand out here all alone, we will give this a shot, and then we'll get some feedback from our buyers. And then maybe that will pressure some of our competitors to jump on board and finally find a solution that we've all been seeking for the last 10 years. I don't know if anyone in the room is aware of OpenAP, but on the start of that, we've got Turner, Fox, NBC, Univision, and Viacom. And we're finally coming together to work on similar data platforms, for lack of a better word, so that these currencies will start to spread and that people can start to cooperate more closely.
So with that standardization, what are some of the hurdles you see for the industry to get to that point right now? Obviously, you're talking about OpenAP. It's a massive endeavor that these network groups are actually undertaking to create this audience standardization. How do you see that advancing forward to actually get advertisers in these networks the right data that can be trusted and transacted upon?
I'll help you. It's key not to impose any particular data on the client. The client has to use whether it's its own data or third-party data or second-party data, it needs to make the decision. Speak for Jen and Chris. I'm sure we've all need to help fill that gap by providing here's some data that may make sense to the client, but long term it's absolutely critical that the client be in control and choose what audience target they want to hit. They know their audience best, or their target audience best. So what does that mean? It means connectivity for the end decisioning engine, the platform or a technology that's being used to put together that schedule to reach that audience, have connectivity to the data through Lotame, aiTV or other data sources, and because that's where the client's data lives, that's where the segments live, and those platforms need to have connectivity to that versus impose the segments that happen to sort of reside in that decisioning engine.
Right, so I would agree. We are talking to our clients all the time. Our partnership with Lotame came about because in syndication is a different animal to measure, and we had thus far not been able to find a Nielsen alternative, so to speak, that could capture the viewing and match it against audiences. So we are really excited about this because, when I compare our numbers with Lotame's aiTV platform with Nielsen's, I actually found a 99% correlation from an integration, second-by-second measurement we did a month ago. I think that's amazing. I think it speaks highly of your platform. And then we were able to combine that with other very targeted audiences. And then we were able to share with the client that even though you didn't necessarily pay to reach your brand buyers or just your department, you paid to reach women 25-54. Here's your cherry on the sundae for now. You're going to pay for the cherry someday, but for today, it was free.
I would just add to that, one thing with the data that we have to work with is some of the data that we've licensed from other companies, not Lotame, have made it very difficult to work with their data. And so I would think that if you're going to be a data provider, make it as easy as possible for your customers to use that data so that we can use it to do our analysis for the media campaigns.
Awesome. So I actually want to flip it and give you guys a chance to voice some of your needs around all of this data. Obviously, more and more audience data is coming into the TV ecosystem, from traditional linear to addressable to programmatic. Where are the gaps in the data? I think this is the perfect audience because you're talking to a room full of people at companies that have a tremendous wealth of data at their disposal. And as the attendees of this conference start to think about new forms of data monetization and changing up their data strategy to now get their assets in TV, where do you guys kind of see those gaps in terms of the different, it could be verticals, it could be transparency into the data. What do you guys think?
I think really the big question is that we don't have a single source. I think once we have, like you said, a single source, we can count every impression equally. We will be able to do deep dives into the really rich data partners you have. To me, right, and then also, you know, everyone in the room here, we're all geeking out on data. We all act like we're all going to share, but some of our agency clients are very hesitant to share their first-party data. We are constantly asking them, you know, what made you make that plan? Why did you buy that network or that program instead of ours? Can you share some of your first-party data so we can fold it into Lotame's aiTV, and they will kick out how it did? And they're very hesitant to do so, and I don't blame them for wanting to protect it, but we're not going to be able to move forward together unless we are all willing to share.
I agree 100%. I mean, that's been a challenge of ours as well, of the first-party data sharing. We haven't had as much challenge on our addressable side of data because we feel like there's enough there to build our targets. But like I touched on earlier, then we're building all those targets based on the individuals, but then when we go to execution, we can't really target them. So for us, is there going to be a technology or a data set that's going to help us make that leap into better targeting on any of the device while they're watching content to reach those impressions.
Yeah, so Chris mentioned earlier the need for standardization, and that's absolutely necessary for everyone to be speaking the same language. And part of the, I mean, one of the things that we did at Clypd to start to address that is we spearheaded something called the Advanced Target Standards Group, which is made up of about 12 different cable network families to have all of these companies get on the same page with respect to what is the minimum universe estimate for that particular audience target. If it's too small, that's not going to work. If it's too big, that's not going to be effective within the use in TV. But what this really ties to is what standardization also ties to beyond scaling this new strategy isn't quality. So I think quality's been brought up in almost every panel thus far. And you know what I like to say is that if it doesn't matter if there is a chef that was educated at Le Cordon Bleu in Paris and has a high-end Italian stove, if the ingredients are crap, the cake is going to be crap. So data quality is important, and also strict rules and standards around how that data is treated is critical to make the scale.
And just to jump on that, you know, we have the MRC. They like to vet out any data provider that is going to become an industry currency. But the process for that could be long. And we all know that we can't afford to lose customers on a daily basis because that's going to figure into your quarterly stock price. So I think a lot of companies are just jumping in. We're validating data as best we can until we get to that point where we can all agree on that currency, because we can't afford to lose sales today because we're waiting for 2 or 3 years for someone else to tell us that it went through this very long process to say it's okay.
All right, so we are starting to wind down on time, and we'll bring this in for a landing. Let's do more stereotypical industry prediction type of stuff right now. Obviously, this space is incredibly hot right now. It is constantly changing. Through the eyes and where you guys sit from each of your respective locations at your companies, where do you see your companies fitting in on both? We have buy-side representation and sell-side representation here. So I'm just curious to see how you guys see the industry moving forward and kind of not necessarily the next 5 years, but more the next year to 18 months.
Well, I think that we're going to see, maybe not the next year, but eventually we're going to see that every household is going to be at least addressable enabled. It doesn't mean that linear is just going to go away, because we're not going to be filling every single ad insertion with addressable. But I do think addressable is filling that gap, because there's the gap right now between TV and digital. And with addressable, it's going to become more and more popular to reach that target audience with that right message at the right time.
So since the beginning of Clypd, we've been laser focused on building tools for media companies, media owners, and for linear TV. We'll start to, we've started to veer off that a little bit, not building tools for we've been building tools for buyers in that we call them enablement tools. The other side needs to be able to transact. We do not optimize for the buy side. You cannot optimize for the media owner side and the buy side at the same time. You can't be a Red Sox fan and a Yankees fan at the same time. But you can build enablement tools, and it's really about making it easier, removing friction, and whether that's removing friction and that being done by the data companies, making it easier to take in data, making it easier for buyers and media owners to transact. We'll be spending a lot of time in making tools easier to use, as well as tools to solve the pending challenges that these companies will have. And that big one that's bearing down on us is cross-platform advertising.
So I agree with both of those. I'm trying to think of a brilliant way to capstone that. I really do think, though, that this separation from DMPs to DSPs to SSPs, the multi-part process has to kind of smooth the way out. I'm really hoping that all the things we're talking about, audience analytics and addressable, is going to take place in the next year or so. They'll start taking larger parts of the budget. Programmatic is supposed to grow rapidly the next 2 to 3 years and become, I think, up to like 15 or 20% by 2021 of all ad buys. I think it's a little aggressive, but I think, people's fear of change is going to be challenged in the face of their need to show results, and they're just going to have to be spurred out of inertia.
So we only have about a minute and a half left. We did ask the panelists to put together a couple key takeaways. We do have a slide that I think will come up. There's a lot of text here. We're not going to go over theirs right now. This will be sent to you afterwards. But I do want to give each of you kind of the chance for last parting words based on our discussion today.
Well, if anyone wants to talk to me about what we're doing at NBC and just talk about the TV market in general, how we can partner with you, I'd be happy to connect.
I'd like to talk to you more about that.
Yeah, so TV is obviously the strongest branding medium, but it is facing a challenge from the digital side. So some of the technologies and innovations that brought digital to where it is today need to make its way into TV. And in order for that to happen at scale, in order for that to be used across $72 billion and not a handful of test campaigns, is for software. So software platform from data companies like Lotame, software platforms from transactional and execution optimization platforms like Clypd will be necessary in order for this to scale across the $72 billion market.
I just think the relationships between us and agencies and data partners is really going to change to where it's just supposed to be ease of the transferring of data back and forth. Having grown up in building dashboards and traditional BI, I have a little tear every time I hear from an agency that my dashboard's very pretty, but can I download the data? And so I really think that it's just going to move toward a lot of transferring of the data APIs back and forth between different companies.
Awesome. Well, guys, thank you so much for participating. If you guys do want to continue the TV chat, feel free to grab myself, Ryan, or our fearless leader, Doug, who I think is floating around the back, and we'll be happy to chat. Thank you.